When my husband told me, "I invited my ex to your brother's wedding, she's basically family. If you trust me, you'll get it," I smiled and said, "Of course I do." Then I secretly asked her husband to be my plus one. Let's just say the rehearsal dinner became unforgettable, for all the right reasons. If you trust me, you'll get why I invited Hannah to Adam's wedding. Elijah announced this at Sunday dinner, right between my mother passing the roasted potatoes and my father pouring his third glass of wine. My brother Adam's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. My future sister-in-law, Claire, kicked me under the table. "Hannah, your ex-girlfriend?" Adam asked slowly. "To my wedding? The one I'm having next month. She's basically family," Elijah explained to my stunned parents, sawing through his chicken like he hadn't just hijacked their dining room. "You remember how close we all were?" Nobody remembered, as it never happened. But I watched my husband construct this elaborate lie while my family sat frozen, and I heard myself say, "Of course, honey. I completely understand." What Elijah didn't know was that I'd already found Isaac Morrison's number, Hannah's actual husband, saved in my phone since yesterday. Before we continue, if you believe betrayal should be exposed and truth deserves to win, please consider subscribing. It's free and helps others find these stories. Now let's see how this unfolds. The discovery had been accidental. Saturday morning, I'd been looking for a yoga studio in Tribeca when Hannah Morrison's Instagram popped up in my suggestions. Same Hannah. Elijah's ex who'd supposedly moved to Seattle 3 years ago for some tech startup opportunity. Except her recent posts were all tagged in Manhattan. Brunches in Soho. Morning runs in Central Park. And a wedding photo from 2 years ago with a man named Isaac Morrison, real estate developer, with the caption, "2 years with my forever." My mother recovered first, though her smile looked painted on. "Hannah, I'm not sure I remember." "Of course you do," Elijah interrupted, reaching for more green beans. "She helped organize your charity auction that time. The one for the library." My mother had never organized a charity auction. She volunteered at the library's book sales, sure, but nothing fancy enough to need organizing. Yet she nodded slowly, confused but too polite to contradict him in front of everyone. "Such a sweet girl," Elijah continued, building his fiction brick by brick. "She's been dying to see everyone again. Since she's back in town for business, the timing is perfect." Claire squeezed my knee harder under the table. She'd been my friend before dating Adam, knew our entire history. She knew Hannah had been gone from Elijah's life long before he met me. The relationship that had supposedly been ancient history, barely worth mentioning during our early dating days. My father cleared his throat. "Well, if she's important to you both." "She is," Elijah said firmly, finally looking at me. His eyes held something I'd never seen before. Not quite a challenge, but close. "Right, Esther?" The correct answer was no. The correct response was to ask why he was inviting his ex-girlfriend to my brother's wedding. The correct move was to point out the inappropriate nature of this entire conversation. Instead, I smiled and passed him the butter dish. "Whatever makes you happy, sweetheart." Adam set down his fork completely. "I don't remember meeting any Hannah." "You were probably away at college," Elijah said smoothly. Too smoothly. He'd prepared for this conversation, rehearsed these lies. "She was around a lot during that time." This was fascinating in its boldness. Adam had gone to Columbia, barely 40 minutes away. He'd been home every other weekend eating these same Sunday dinners. If Hannah had been around a lot, he would have met her. We all knew it. But Elijah kept going, adding details to his fabrication like an artist adding brushstrokes. "She knows all the family stories," he said, laughing at some private memory. "Remember that time at the shore house? 4th of July. We didn't have a shore house. We'd rented one once 5 years ago, long after Hannah would have exited his life. But my parents exchanged glances, trying to recall a memory that didn't exist while their son-in-law gaslit our entire family over pot roast. The rest of dinner blurred into a performance. Elijah playing the devoted husband, nostalgic about old friendships. My parents confused but accommodating. Adam silently furious but holding back for my sake. Claire practically vibrating with indignation beside him. And me, the understanding wife, cutting my chicken into smaller and smaller pieces while my husband recruited my family into his deception. After dessert, my mother's famous apple pie that tasted like sawdust in my mouth. Elijah helped clear plates while regaling my father with a story about Hannah's supposed new position at a marketing firm. More lies. According to her LinkedIn, which I'd memorized yesterday, she'd been at the same company for 3 years. In the kitchen, Adam cornered me by the dishwasher. What's going on? I don't know what you mean. Esther. His voice was low, urgent. I've never met this woman. Mom and Dad have never met her. Why is Elijah acting like she's some family friend? I focused on scraping plates, avoiding his eyes. Maybe you just don't remember. Stop. He grabbed my wrist gently. This is me. Tell me what's happening. Claire appeared in the doorway, standing guard. Through the dining room, I could hear Elijah laughing at something my father said. The sound made my skin crawl. I can't, I whispered. Not yet. Just trust me, okay? And act normal about Hannah coming to the wedding. Adam's face went through several expressions before landing on concern. Esther. Please. I'm handling it. He wanted to argue, I could see it. My baby brother who'd protected me from playground bullies and bad boyfriends, who'd vetted Elijah thoroughly before approving of our engagement. But something in my face made him step back. Hey. But if you need anything. I know. The ride home was silent except for Elijah humming along to jazz on the radio. His hand rested on my thigh, possessive and familiar. 4 years of marriage reduced to this performance. Both of us pretending everything was fine while secrets multiplied between us like cancer cells. At a red light, he squeezed my knee. Thank you for being so understanding about Hannah. I knew you would be. You're not the jealous type. The jealous type. As if betrayal was about jealousy rather than deception. As if inviting your ex-girlfriend to a family wedding was normal behavior for secure couples. When did she get back to New York? I asked, keeping my voice casual. Few months ago, maybe? His hand tightened slightly on my leg. Haven't kept close track. Another lie. Her Instagram showed she'd never left. The yoga studio she tagged yesterday was 6 blocks from Elijah's new gym. The one he joined 2 months ago for his sudden fitness kick. His Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday schedule that never wavered, never produced the expected soreness or gym stories, but had trimmed 20 pounds off his frame. Back in our apartment, Elijah disappeared into the shower while I stood at our 10th floor window, city lights blinking below like coded messages. Somewhere out there, Hannah Morrison was probably lounging in her own apartment with her husband Isaac, planning what to wear to my brother's wedding. Did Isaac know his wife was resuming an affair? Or was he as blindly trusting as I'd been until yesterday? His number burned in my phone. 1 call. 1 text. That's all it would take to compare notes to confirm what I already knew in my bones. But not yet. First I needed more proof. Real evidence that would stand up against Elijah's smooth denials and practiced lies. The shower stopped. Soon he'd climb into bed, kiss my forehead and fall asleep within minutes while I lay awake replaying every business trip, every late meeting, every new shirt and unexplained cologne purchase. The perfect illusion of our marriage had shattered at my parents' dinner table, but I'd keep performing my role a little longer. Because if Elijah wanted to bring Hannah to Adam's wedding, I'd make sure she had company. Isaac Morrison would be my +1, and together we'd give them a reunion they'd never forget. Monday morning arrived with Elijah kissing my forehead before leaving for work, his cologne lingering in the air, something new and expensive I didn't recognize. The apartment felt different now, like the walls themselves knew about the performance we were both giving. I waited exactly 10 minutes after hearing the elevator close before opening my laptop. Hannah Morrison's Instagram became my obsession. Public profile, 847 posts, each one a potential piece of evidence. I scrolled methodically, screenshot by screenshot, building a folder titled Tax Documents on my desktop. Her life unfolded in reverse. Recent yoga classes in Tribeca, wine tastings in Brooklyn, art gallery openings where she wore dresses that cost more than our mortgage payment. Then I found him. Isaac Morrison appeared first in a wedding photo from 2 years ago. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of tired eyes that suggested he worked too much. Real estate developer according to the tag. His own profile was harder to access. Private settings, but his company page, Morrison Properties, was wide open. The conference schedule on his business page made my coffee go cold. Boston Real Estate Summit March 15th to 17th. The same weekend Elijah had his emergency investor meeting in Boston. I remembered the video call where Elijah had tried to show me his hotel room, accidentally revealing the lobby for a split second. The Marriott Copley Place. The exact hotel listed as the conference venue on Isaac's company newsletter. My hands trembled as I cross-referenced everything. Isaac's post about productive morning sessions time-stamped at 9 a.m. Elijah's text to me about breakfast meeting running long at 9:07 a.m. Hannah's Instagram story from that same morning. A coffee cup at the Marriott Lounge, no caption, but her manicured hand wearing the pearl ring that had appeared around the same time as Elijah's mysterious credit card charge. 3 days became my timeline for evidence gathering. Tuesday, I called in sick to work and drove to Elijah's gym during his supposed workout window. His car wasn't in the parking lot, but 14 blocks away at a boutique hotel's valet stand there it was. The same hotel where Hannah had posted a selfie 2 hours earlier, claiming she was at a client lunch. Wednesday brought credit card statements. I'd never checked them before, trusted him to handle our finances while I managed the household. The entries read like a confession. 11 Madison Park, $400, on a night he'd claimed to be entertaining clients from Tokyo. Except Hannah had posted about date night, with just a heart emoji that same evening. The jewelry store charge, $2,847, not the $2,800 I'd estimated from Cartier, dated 3 weeks ago. Our anniversary was 6 months away. I photographed everything with my phone, creating duplicates in case he somehow discovered my laptop folder. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, and growing by the hour. A reservation at the Greenwich Hotel's restaurant when he was supposedly at a conference in Philadelphia. Theater tickets purchased for a Wednesday matinee when he texted me about back-to-back meetings. A lingerie store charge that certainly hadn't produced anything in my drawer. The most damning discovery came from their synchronized mistakes. Hannah's spa weekend in the Hamptons matched Elijah's golf trip with clients. But the weather that weekend had been torrential rain. No golf course would have been open. Isaac had posted about being in Chicago for a property viewing. For people, 2 affairs, one massive web of lies that they'd maintained for God knows how long. Thursday evening shattered any remaining doubt. Adam called while I was staring at spreadsheets of evidence, his voice tight with confusion. Esther, what's going on with Elijah? He's called me 3 times about the seating chart. I closed my laptop, pressing the phone closer to my ear. What about it? He keeps insisting Hannah needs a table with a good view of the ceremony. He actually suggested moving Aunt Patricia to accommodate her. Aunt Patricia, who's 93 and Dad's favorite sister. My brother's frustration bled through the phone. He'd never particularly warmed to Elijah, too smooth he'd said once, but had accepted him for my sake. And get this, Adam continued, he offered to pay for Hannah's hotel room. Said it was his wedding gift to us. What kind of wedding gift is paying for your ex-girlfriend's accommodation? I don't know, I managed, though I knew exactly what kind. The kind that meant he planned to spend the night with her. Should I be worried? Is everything okay between you two? The concern in his voice nearly broke me. I wanted to tell him everything, to let him storm over here and confront Elijah with his protective brother rage. But not yet. We're fine. Maybe he's just trying to be friendly. Adam's silence said he didn't buy it, but he let it drop. If you need anything. I know. Thanks. After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of our living room, city lights painting patterns on the ceiling. Elijah had been planning this for weeks, maybe months. Every detail orchestrated to give him a weekend with Hannah while using my brother's wedding as cover. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. Friday morning, I found Isaac Morrison's business website. Morrison Properties had a clean, professional design with his direct email at the bottom of the contact page. I opened a new message and stared at the blank screen for an hour. How do you tell a stranger their marriage is a lie? How do you introduce yourself as a fellow victim? 20 drafts later, each one deleted, I finally typed. Your wife is attending my brother's wedding as my husband's guest. Simple. Direct. Undeniable. My finger hovered over the send button while rain started pattering against the windows. This would change everything. Once sent, there was no taking it back, no pretending I didn't know, no returning to the comfortable lie of my marriage. I hit send at 11:47 a.m. Then I drove to my favorite coffee shop, ordered a latte I didn't drink, and waited. My phone sat face up on the table, silent for hours that felt like days. Customers came and went. The barista asked twice if I needed anything else. The rain stopped, started, stopped again. At 5:15 a.m. the next morning my phone buzzed. I've been suspicious for months. Let's meet. 7 words that confirmed everything while revealing nothing. Isaac Morrison knew. Or at least suspected. We were 2 strangers about to unite over the betrayal of the people we'd promised to love forever. I typed back, Financial District Starbucks. Monday 10 a.m. His response was immediate, I'll bring proof. Proof. As if my folder of screenshots and receipts wasn't enough. As if we needed more evidence that our spouses were liars who'd turned our marriages into elaborate theaters while they played out their rekindled romance. The weekend crawled by with excruciating slowness. Elijah attended a Saturday client golf outing that lasted 9 hours, returning home with dry clothes despite the afternoon thunderstorm. Sunday he made breakfast, his guilt pancakes I'd started calling them in my head, while humming off-key to jazz. I smiled, ate 2 bites and claimed an upset stomach. Monday morning finally arrived. I left the apartment at my usual time but drove past my office building, continuing downtown toward the financial district. The Starbucks on Pearl Street was already crowded with bankers and lawyers grabbing their morning fixes. I ordered an espresso I didn't want and claimed a corner table where I could watch the door. Isaac Morrison walked in at exactly 10 a.m. and I knew him instantly. Not just from his photos. Something in the way he moved, careful and deliberate, like someone who'd learned not to trust the ground beneath his feet. He spotted me immediately, probably recognizing the same shell-shocked look in my eyes. Esther. His voice was deeper than I'd expected, rougher around the edges. I nodded, gesturing to the chair across from me. He sat down heavily, pulling a manila envelope from his messenger bag before even ordering coffee. I brought receipts, he said without preamble. 6 months' worth. He slid papers across the table. Credit card statements with highlighted charges, hotel bills, restaurant receipts. My hands shook slightly as I picked up the first one. The Ritz-Carlton Miami Valentine's Day weekend. A charge for $3,200 that included couples massage, champagne service and a late checkout. Hannah said it was a work incentive trip, Isaac explained, his voice flat. Top performers at her company. Except I called her company. They don't do incentive trips. Haven't in 3 years due to budget cuts. The next receipt was from 11 Madison Park. $400 for dinner for 2, the same night Elijah claimed to be entertaining Tokyo clients. This was their anniversary dinner, Isaac said, pointing to the date. The anniversary of when they first started dating in college. She celebrates it every year. Used to drag me to some fancy place, but this year she said she was working late. I pulled out my phone, showing him my own evidence folder. Elijah's calendar has fake meetings with the Thompson account every Tuesday and Thursday. I called Thompson's secretary. Those meetings never existed. Isaac laughed. A harsh, broken sound. Hannah has him saved in her phone as Pilates instructor. Found that out when her actual Pilates instructor called about a scheduling change and I got confused. We spent the next hour creating a timeline on coffee shop napkins, mapping out the elaborate choreography of deception. Every business trip aligned with a conference. Every late night matched a work emergency. Every weekend apart had been carefully orchestrated. Miami conference, I wrote, drawing an arrow to Isaac's cruise receipt. Boston summit, he added, connecting it to my hotel charge. Golf weekend, I scribbled, linking it to Hannah's spa retreat Instagram posts. The pattern was so clear, so obvious once we laid it out. They'd been carrying on for at least 6 months, possibly longer. The recent intensity, Elijah's new clothes, Hannah's jewelry, suggested things were escalating. The wedding, Isaac said suddenly, staring at our makeshift timeline. Your brother's wedding. They're planning something. I nodded, sipping espresso that had gone cold. Elijah's been obsessing over the seating arrangements. Wants Hannah at the family table with the best view. Hannah bought a dress. $3,000 from Bergdorf's. Told me it was for her company gala, but I checked. There's no gala scheduled. We sat in silence for a moment, surrounded by the morning rush of the financial district, 2 strangers united by the implosion of our marriages. What do you want to do? Isaac asked finally. What do you mean? We could confront them privately. Pack their stuff, change the locks, serve papers. Clean and simple. I thought about it. The civilized route. The mature response. The path that would minimize drama and preserve dignity. Then I remembered Elijah at my parents' dinner table, lying to my family's faces, recruiting them into his deception. Or, I prompted. Isaac leaned back, a ghost of a smile crossing his face. Or we could give them exactly what they want. A wedding together. Just not the way they planned it. You mean? I come as your plus one. You're already invited, obviously. They walk in expecting their secret rendezvous and instead find us together. Public accountability. No room for denial or gaslighting. The idea was insane. Petty. Potentially explosive. It was also perfect. They'd be completely blindsided, I said slowly, warming to the concept. In front of your entire family. Their lies exposed with witnesses. We ordered another round of coffee. Real coffee this time, not props for our heavy conversation, and refined the plan. Isaac would arrive separately after Elijah and Hannah were already there. We'd time it perfectly for maximum impact. No violence, no screaming, just the quiet devastation of truth delivered in evening wear. Are you sure about this? Isaac asked as we prepared to leave. Once we do this, there's no going back. Our marriages are over. They're already over, I replied, surprised by my own certainty. We're just the last to know. That evening I sat in my car outside our apartment building for a full hour. Through the 10th floor windows I could see shadows moving. Elijah home from work, probably making dinner, playing the devoted husband while texting Hannah about their upcoming weekend. My phone rang. I'm sitting outside my house, he said without greeting. Hannah's inside making dinner. Acting completely normal. Kissed me when I got home like she didn't spend Valentine's Day in Miami with your husband. Are we really doing this? I heard him exhale slowly. I keep thinking maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's an explanation. Maybe we're misreading everything. The receipts don't lie, Isaac. No, he agreed quietly. They don't. We stayed on the phone, two people sitting in separate cars, watching the windows of our fraudulent lives, drawing strength from shared devastation. Living this lie is killing me, I admitted. Every morning I make his coffee and pretend I don't know. Every night I sleep next to him and wonder if he's dreaming about her. Last night Hannah told me she loved me, Isaac said. While wearing the earrings I now know he bought her. How do they compartmentalize like that? I don't know. I don't understand any of it. Me neither. He paused. But I'd rather burn it all down than keep pretending. Even if we end up alone? We're already alone, Esther. We're just sharing beds with strangers who happen to be lying to us. He was right. The loneliness of deception was worse than the prospect of actual solitude. At least alone I'd have my dignity, my truth, my self-respect. Saturday's rehearsal dinner, I said. Lou Bernardine at 7. I'll be there at 7:30. Give them time to get comfortable. Isaac, what if we're making a huge mistake? His laugh was soft, almost gentle. Then at least it'll be our mistake, not theirs. After we hung up, I sat for another moment watching Elijah's shadow pass by the window. In 5 days everything would change. The comfortable lie would shatter, replaced by whatever came after truth. It was terrifying. It was necessary. It was time. I walked into the apartment, legs still shaky from sitting in the car so long, to find Elijah in the kitchen with an apron on. Something I hadn't seen in 2 years. The smell of garlic and rosemary filled the space. He was making chicken piccata, my favorite, the dish he'd cooked on our third date when I knew I was falling for him. Perfect timing, he said, not looking up from the pan. Dinner's almost ready. Open that Pinot Grigio in the fridge. Tuesday. 5 days until the rehearsal dinner, and suddenly my husband had transformed into a character from a romantic movie. I uncorked the wine with steady hands, though inside I was screaming. This was guilt cooking. Every herb, every perfectly placed caper was an attempt to balance some internal scale. What's the occasion? I asked, handing him a glass. Does there have to be an occasion to cook for my beautiful wife? The word, beautiful, stuck in my throat. He hadn't called me that in months. Now, with Hannah's arrival imminent, I was suddenly visible again. Wednesday brought flowers. Not just any flowers. Peonies. Soft pink peonies from the expensive florist on Madison Avenue, the kind that cost $30 per stem. He'd forgotten my birthday last year, but now, 3 days before he planned to spend a wedding weekend with his ex, He remembered my favorite flower. Saw them and thought of you, he said, kissing my cheek while I arranged them in water. His lips felt like a brand, marking me as the fool who didn't know. That afternoon while he was at his supposed gym session, I went shopping. Not browsing, hunting. I needed armor for Saturday night, something that would make me feel powerful when my world exploded. The third store had it. An emerald green dress that hugged without clinging, sophisticated with an edge of danger. The color matched the earrings Elijah had given me on our first anniversary, back when his gifts were still for me. The saleswoman held up a mirror as I turned. Special occasion? You could say that. A funeral of sorts. She laughed, thinking I was joking. I bought the dress and shoes to match, heels high enough to look him in the eye when everything fell apart. Thursday, Elijah offered a foot massage after dinner. He pulled my feet into his lap while we watched TV, his thumbs working the arches with practiced pressure. His phone buzzed every few minutes on the side table. Each time his hands would pause, his eyes would flick to the screen, but he didn't pick it up. The restraint must have been killing him. Who keeps texting? I asked innocently. Just work stuff. Johnson's being demanding about the quarterly reports. Johnson was his supervisor who'd been on vacation in Bermuda all week, according to the out-of-office reply I'd gotten when I'd tested Elijah's lie by emailing about a fictional dinner party. I took a photo of him massaging my feet, his wedding ring visible, the TV showing the timestamp. I sent it to Isaac with the caption, "The guilt is strong tonight. Hannah must be getting excited." Isaac replied immediately, "Hannah just spent an hour on the phone with her friend in the bathroom." I could hear her giggling. Friday morning changed everything. I was making breakfast when Elijah emerged from the bedroom in his best casual outfit. The jeans that made him look 10 years younger, the polo that brought out his eyes. "I'm picking up Hannah from the airport this afternoon," he announced, pouring coffee like this was normal conversation. "Her flight gets in at 3. It's on my way from the office." The airport was 40 minutes in the opposite direction from his office. "That's nice of you," I managed, flipping pancakes I wouldn't eat. "Well, she doesn't know the city anymore." Another lie. According to her Instagram, she'd been at a wine bar in Soho just last night. "I'll probably show her around a bit, help her get settled at her hotel." "Which hotel?" "The Marriott in Times Square." I nodded, knowing Isaac had already confirmed she'd booked a room at the St. Regis, where Elijah coincidentally had a mysterious charge on our credit card. He spent 20 minutes styling his hair, something he hadn't done since our dating days. Applied cologne in 3 places, wrists, neck and chest. I watched from the doorway as he checked himself in the mirror, adjusting and readjusting his collar. "You look nice," I said. He startled, not having noticed me watching. "Just want to look presentable for the wedding weekend." "It's Friday. The wedding's tomorrow." "Right, but there's the welcome drinks tonight." There were no welcome drinks. Adam and Claire were having a quiet family dinner. After he left, I photographed his cologne collection, 3 new bottles in the past 2 months. Documented the receipt for a haircut at a salon that cost $150. Found the shopping bag from Nordstrom hidden in his closet with tags for clothes he hadn't worn yet, saving them for tomorrow. I met Isaac at a park in Battery City at noon. He looked exhausted, wearing sunglasses despite the overcast sky. "Hannah asked me to help her pack last night," he said without preamble. "Wanted my opinion on outfits. She tried on the Versace dress and asked if it made her look fat. The dress she bought to seduce your husband, and she wanted my opinion. Elijah ironed 5 shirts this morning. Then chose the one that Hannah complimented once 3 months ago on his Instagram. We sat on a bench watching tourists take photos, both of us living in houses that had become crime scenes. "Are we ready for tomorrow?" Isaac asked. "My dress is hanging in the guest room closet. Shoes are polished. I have our story straight. We met through professional networking when you were looking for office space near my company. Hannah mentioned the rehearsal dinner 12 times yesterday. She's been dieting for 3 weeks for this. Elijah got a teeth whitening treatment on Monday." We looked at each other and laughed. Not happy laughter, but the kind that comes when crying would take too much energy. 7:30 tomorrow, Isaac confirmed, checking his watch. "I'll wait in the lobby until I see them go in, then give it 5 minutes. They'll be at the family table near the front. My parents insist on being close to the podium for speeches. Perfect view for everyone to see their faces when I walk in." We shook hands, formal like business partners closing a deal. In a way we were. A deal to end the charade, to stop pretending we didn't know our spouses were liars who'd turned our marriages into theater. Isaac. I called as he started to walk away. What if they try to explain? What if they have some story that makes sense? He turned back, removing his sunglasses so I could see his eyes. Tired, sad, but absolutely certain. There's no story that explains 6 months of receipts, Esther. No explanation that justifies the lies, the planning, the calculated deception. They made their choice every single day for months. Tomorrow we're just showing them we know. He was right. Tomorrow would be devastating, but it would also be honest. For the first time in months, maybe years, everyone would see the truth. Saturday arrived with the kind of bright, cloudless sky that seemed to mock the storm brewing inside me. The Waldorf Astoria lobby buzzed with wedding guests, and I stood near the check-in desk watching relatives arrive, each one requiring a performance of normalcy I wasn't sure I could maintain. Esther, darling. Aunt Margaret swooped in, her pearls catching the chandelier light. Where's that handsome husband of yours? Getting someone from the airport, I said, accepting her powdered cheek kiss. An old friend. Elijah appeared moments later, his hand finding the small of my back with practiced intimacy. The touch burned through my dress fabric. He'd changed into his new suit, the Tom Ford he'd hidden in the closet, and his teeth were blindingly white when he smiled at my aunt. Margaret, you look 20 years younger, he charmed, and she actually giggled. This was Elijah at his best, deploying compliments like currency, purchasing goodwill he'd soon need. His phone vibrated against my hip where he kept it in his pocket. He didn't check it, but his fingers tightened slightly on my waist. Hannah texting probably. Confirming their plans while he stood here playing devoted husband. Such a lovely hotel, Aunt Margaret continued. Perfect for Adam's big day. Speaking of which, where is your brother? Probably having a nervous breakdown, I said, watching Elijah's jaw tense. He hated when I mentioned Adam's anxiety about the wedding details. It reminded him that this was my brother's day, not his romantic rendezvous. More relatives arrived in waves. Cousins from Boston, my father's business partner, Claire's extended family from Connecticut. Elijah worked the room like a politician, shaking hands and remembering names while checking his phone every time he thought I wasn't looking. His tie had been adjusted so many times that the knot was starting to look crooked. My mother appeared at my elbow during a lull, elegant in her pearl gray dress. Elijah seems nervous, she observed, watching him laugh too loudly at my uncle's golf joke. Is everything all right? He's just excited about the wedding, I said, the truth burning my tongue. He keeps asking about the seating arrangements. Wanted to make sure someone named Hannah has a good view. Do we know a Hannah? Before I could answer, Adam materialized in the corridor, still in jeans and a t-shirt despite the rehearsal dinner being hours away. He grabbed my arm, steering me toward a quiet alcove near the elevators. We need to talk, he said, his voice tight. Elijah just cornered me again. He's obsessed with this Hannah person. Offered me $500 to move her to the main family table. 500. Cash. Had it ready in an envelope. What the hell is going on, Esther? I looked at my baby brother, 6'2" now, but still the kid who'd defended me from playground bullies. His wedding day was tomorrow, and here was my husband trying to hijack it for his affair. Trust me, I said, squeezing his hand. Please. Just get through tonight and I promise everything will make sense. Esther. It'll be a story you'll tell your grandchildren. The most memorable rehearsal dinner in family history. He searched my face, seeing something there that made him step back. You're scaring me a little. Good. Hold on to that feeling. You'll need it later. Claire appeared, radiant in a sundress, looping her arm through Adam's. Everything okay? Family drama, Adam muttered. The usual. She looked at me with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. If you need backup. I might, I admitted. Just be ready around 7:30. Back in my hotel room at 5 p.m., I stood before the mirror in my underwear, the emerald dress hanging on the bathroom door like a promise. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah, my best friend who'd been my lifeline through this week of insanity. You've got this, she wrote. Channel your inner goddess. Destroy them with elegance. The makeup went on like war paint. Foundation smooth as armor, eyeliner sharp as weapons. My hand stayed steady despite the earthquake in my chest. This was happening. In 2 hours the lie would die and whatever came after would at least be real. At 6:45 I zipped up the dress, the emerald fabric transforming me into someone I barely recognized. Someone powerful, dangerous, ready. My phone lit up with Isaac's message. In position in the lobby. Hannah just posted an Instagram story from her Uber. She's wearing the Versace. Elijah left 10 minutes ago to get her, I replied. See you on the other side. One last look in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the trusting wife who'd smiled through Sunday dinner lies. This was someone else. Someone who'd gathered receipts like weapons and chosen truth over comfortable fiction. The elevator ride felt endless. Each floor counting down to detonation. The lobby was quieter now, most guests already heading to dinner or getting ready in their rooms. I walked through like a ghost, heels clicking on marble, several heads turning to track my progress. The emerald dress was doing its job. Lou Bernardine's private dining room glowed with soft light and fresh flowers. My parents were already there, arranging place cards with the obsessive attention to detail that made them perfect party hosts. My mother looked up, her face brightening. Darling, you look stunning. That dress. Thanks, Mom. I picked up a place card with Hannah's name, noting its position at the family table, exactly where Elijah had paid to put it. Everything's perfect. The champagne flute someone pressed into my hand remained untouched. I couldn't risk alcohol, not tonight. I needed every brain cell firing, every reaction under control. 7:05. Cousins started arriving. Claire's parents. My father's brother from Philadelphia. I made small talk about tomorrow's weather forecast, about Adam's nervousness, about anything except the bomb about to explode in this beautiful room. 7:10. My phone vibrated. Isaac. They just walked in together. His hand is on her back. They're laughing. I typed back with steady fingers, incoming. Then I positioned myself with a clear view of the entrance, champagne prop in hand, smile fixed in place. The avalanche was rolling now, gravity pulling it toward impact, and there was no force on earth that could stop it. The door opened. Elijah walked in first, his face glowing with the particular happiness of a man who thought he was getting away with everything. Behind him, Hannah in her Versace dress, blonde hair cascading over bare shoulders, looking exactly like the kind of woman men destroyed marriages for. They moved through the room like a couple, her hand brushing his arm, him guiding her with subtle touches that anyone watching would recognize as intimate. My mother noticed. I saw her face shift from welcome to confusion. My father's eyes narrowed. Adam stood slowly from his seat. Elijah brought Hannah straight to me, probably thinking he'd get the introduction over with quickly, neutralize any awkwardness with his charm and confidence. He had no idea he was walking into his own execution. Darling, he said, leaning in to kiss my cheek while Hannah watched with barely concealed satisfaction. This is Hannah. Hannah, my wife Esther. So lovely to finally meet you, Hannah purred, extending a manicured hand. Elijah's told me so much about you. I took her hand, noting the pearl bracelet that matched the earrings Elijah had bought, completing the set. Has he? How interesting, since he's told me almost nothing about you. The door opened again. Isaac walked in like he owned the room. 6'3" in a charcoal suit that made him look like a man who'd come to collect a debt. He paused in the doorway, scanning the room with deliberate slowness, letting everyone see him before he moved. The conversations near the entrance died first, then spread through the room like a wave as heads turned to track this stranger's progress. Sorry I'm late, he said, his voice cutting through the sudden quiet. Traffic was murder. The champagne glass slipped from Hannah's hand. The crystal shattered against the marble floor with a sound like breaking bells, golden liquid splashing across her Versace dress and designer shoes. The entire room froze, watching champagne spread between the tables like spilled secrets. Isaac. Hannah's voice came out strangled, barely above a whisper. Her face had gone the color of old paper, all that carefully applied makeup suddenly standing out against bloodless skin. Elijah jumped up so fast his chair screeched against the floor. You weren't invited. This is a private event. Actually, I said, standing slowly, smoothing my emerald dress with deliberate calm, he's my +1. Isaac, honey, come sit. You're right next to me. The word honey landed like a grenade. My mother's hand flew to her throat. Adam's mouth fell open. Claire pulled out her phone and I saw the red recording light appear. What's going on? My father demanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd built a business from nothing and didn't tolerate nonsense. Isaac walked through the wreckage of the champagne glass, his shoes crunching on crystal shards. What's going on is that my wife and your son-in-law have been having an affair for at least 6 months. He pulled out his phone, swiping through screens with practiced efficiency. Should I start with the Miami cruise she said was a work incentive? Or the Boston conference where they shared a room at the Marriott? We didn't, Hannah stammered, trying to stand, but her heel caught in her wet dress hem. Save it, Isaac said, his voice flat and terrible. I have receipts. Credit card statements. Text messages where you saved his number as Pilates instructor. Really, Hannah? Pilates? Elijah's face cycled through emotions, shock, anger, calculation, before settling on denial. This is ridiculous. Hannah and I are old friends. Esther knows that. She understands. I understand plenty, I interrupted, pulling my own phone from my clutch. Like how your Thompson account meetings never existed. Thompson's secretary confirmed that when I called. Every Tuesday and Thursday for 6 months, you were in fake meetings. My cousin Barbara gasped audibly. Someone dropped a fork. The jewelry receipt was interesting too, I continued, scrolling through my evidence folder. $2,800 at Cartier 3 weeks ago. Our anniversary isn't for 6 months, Elijah. But Hannah's wearing new pearls tonight. What a coincidence. Hannah's hand flew to her throat, covering the pearl necklace like she could make it disappear. The hotel charges were my favorite, Isaac added, his voice gaining momentum. The St. Regis for times in the past 2 months. Always on nights when Hannah had client dinners and Elijah had conferences. My mother stood up, her face a masterpiece of controlled fury. Is this true? Have you been carrying on with this woman while married to my daughter? Elijah tried his charm one more time, spreading his hands in a gesture of innocence. This is all being blown out of proportion. Hannah needed support during a difficult time. I was being a friend. A friend doesn't buy lingerie, Isaac said quietly, and the room went completely silent. $800 at La Perla. I found the receipt in her jewelry box, hidden under earrings you bought her. Hannah made a sound like a wounded animal. Isaac, please, let's discuss this privately. Privately? Isaac laughed, harsh and bitter. Like your private discussions with him? Your private trips? Your private hotel rooms? No, I think public is perfect. All these people should know what kind of woman is attending this wedding. My father stood up slowly, deliberately, like a judge preparing to deliver a verdict. Elijah. Hannah. You need to leave. Now. But, Elijah started. Now. My father's voice brooked no argument. Before I have hotel security escort you out. Adam finally found his voice. Wait. Everyone turned to look at him. Esther, did you know? Did you plan this? I met my brother's eyes across the room. I found out 2 weeks ago. Isaac and I compared notes. We decided if they wanted to attend a wedding together so badly, they should get their wish. Just not the way they planned. The room erupted. Aunts whispered furiously to uncles. Cousins stared with naked fascination. Claire's mother covered her mouth in shock while her father shook his head in disgust. But my mother, my proper etiquette-obsessed mother, started laughing. Not hysterical laughter but deep, genuine appreciation. That's my daughter, she said, raising her champagne glass to me. That's my brilliant daughter. Hannah stood on shaking legs, champagne still dripping from her designer dress. This is entrapment. You planned this. We planned this. I asked, my voice sharp enough to cut. You've been planning an affair for months. We just planned its ending. She grabbed Elijah's arm. We're leaving. But Elijah wasn't looking at her. He was looking at me, and for the first time since this started, I saw real loss in his eyes. Not guilt, not anger, but the dawning realization of what he'd thrown away. Esther. Don't, I said simply. Just don't. Hannah pulled him toward the door, her heels clicking frantically on the marble. But at the threshold, Elijah turned back. This isn't over, he said, his voice low and threatening. I raised my champagne glass, finally taking a sip of the liquid I'd been holding for an hour. Actually, it is. My lawyer will be in touch on Monday. They left, Hannah's Versace dress swishing, Elijah's shoulders rigid with humiliation. The door closed behind them with a soft click that sounded like the end of everything. The room stayed frozen for another heartbeat. Then Uncle Richard started slow clapping. Aunt Margaret joined. Soon half the room was applauding while the other half sat in stunned silence. Isaac walked over to me, extending his hand formally. "Thank you for inviting me. This was therapeutic." I shook his hand, feeling the tremor in both our grips. "Thank you for coming. For being brave enough to do this." "They chose this," he said quietly so only I could hear. "Every day for months they chose this. We just chose to stop pretending we didn't know." A waiter appeared with a broom, sweeping up the shattered champagne glass. The metaphor was almost too perfect, cleaning up the glittering mess of our marriages, piece by broken piece. Adam stood and raised his glass. "Well, this is definitely going to be a wedding weekend nobody forgets." Nervous laughter rippled through the room. People started moving again, conversations resuming in hushed tones. The rehearsal dinner would continue, but everything had changed. The comfortable lies were dead, replaced by uncomfortable truth. My father appeared at my elbow, his hand gentle on my shoulder. "Are you all right?" I considered the question. My marriage was over. My husband had just been exposed as a liar and a cheat in front of my entire family. Tomorrow was my brother's wedding and I'd turned the rehearsal dinner into a soap opera. "I will be," I said, and for the first time in weeks I actually believed it. The waiter approached tentatively with our entrees, looking like someone defusing a bomb. "Should I serve the main course?" My mother, ever the hostess even in chaos, straightened her shoulders. "Yes, please. We're still celebrating my son's wedding tomorrow." Isaac and I ended up seated together at the family table, the empty chairs where Elijah and Hannah should have been gaping like missing teeth. My Aunt Barbara leaned across, patting my hand with her paper-soft fingers. "I never liked him," she whispered conspiratorially. "Too much cologne. Men who wear that much cologne are hiding something." Uncle Richard raised his whiskey. "To unexpected entertainment and family members with backbone." The toast rippled through the room, glasses lifting with varying degrees of enthusiasm. Some relatives looked scandalized, others thrilled by the drama. My grandmother, 91 and sharp as a blade, cackled from her wheelchair. "Best rehearsal dinner I've been to in 70 years, she announced. "Better than my nephew's when the bride's father punched the groom." Adam stood up, tapping his knife against his glass. The room quieted, everyone eager for his reaction to his rehearsal dinner becoming a battlefield. "Well," he started, looking directly at me, "my sister just gave us a story that'll last generations. My kids will hear about Aunt Esther's legendary rehearsal dinner takedown. So here's to Esther, who showed us all that truth, even when it's ugly, is better than a beautiful lie." The applause was genuine this time. Claire blew me a kiss from across the table. My father reached over, squeezing my shoulder with his calloused hand, a wordless message of support that meant more than any speech. Isaac picked at his salmon, looking shell-shocked now that the adrenaline was fading. "Did we really just do that?" "We did. My wife of 3 years just ran out covered in champagne with her affair partner. My husband of 4 years just got exposed in front of everyone I'm related to." We looked at each other and started laughing. Not happy laughter, but the kind that comes when crying would take energy we didn't have. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of careful conversation. Everyone avoided mentioning Elijah or Hannah, talking instead about tomorrow's weather forecast, the beautiful flower arrangements, anything safe. Isaac and I ate in companionable silence, two shipwreck survivors sharing a life raft. At 10 o'clock, as guests began leaving, my father pulled me aside. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "That took courage. And don't worry about lawyers, I'll cover whatever you need." Sunday dawned bright and perfect, the kind of September day that made you believe in fresh starts. I stood in my bridesmaid dress, soft lavender that Claire had chosen months ago, watching her and Adam exchange vows in the hotel garden. No empty chairs, no unwanted guests, just two people promising to love each other honestly. When it came time for readings, I approached the microphone with Mary Oliver's poem about resilience. My voice stayed steady through. "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" But several guests dabbed at their eyes, understanding the subtext. During the father-daughter dance, my dad whispered, "Randall Clearwater is the best divorce attorney in the city. Already made you an appointment for Tuesday." "Dad." No arguments. That man humiliated you publicly. We're going to make sure he pays appropriately. The bouquet toss came after dinner. Claire aimed directly at me, we both knew it, and I caught it reflexively. The crowd cheered, but I immediately handed it to my 16-year-old cousin Emma. Your turn for fairy tales, I told her. I'm taking a break from wedding traditions. Everyone laughed, but knowingly. The story had already spread through the reception like wildfire. Elijah's absence was explained in whispers, each retelling adding new details, some true, some embellished. My phone started buzzing during the cake cutting. I'd forgotten I'd turned it back on. 27 messages, mostly from numbers I didn't recognize. Then I saw Hannah's Instagram post, shared by a mutual acquaintance. Sometimes you learn that people you trusted are toxic. When someone's ex-spouse can't let go and creates elaborate scenes to embarrass you, it shows their true character. Rising above the negativity and focusing on my truth. The audacity was breathtaking. She was trying to flip the narrative, paint herself as the victim of a jealous ex-spouse. The comments were initially supportive, friends who didn't know better offering heart emojis and sympathetic words. Then Isaac struck back. He posted a simple timeline on his Facebook, tagged enough mutual connections to ensure visibility. February 14th, Hannah at work retreat, / receipt from Miami Ritz-Carlton for two. March 15th to 17th. Hannah at conference / Boston hotel charges matching Elijah's stay. April 22nd. Hannah buying work clothes / lingerie store receipt for $800. May 10th. Hannah at client dinner / reservation for 2 at 11 Madison Park. He ended with, receipts don't lie. People do. Within an hour Hannah's post disappeared. The comments on Isaac's timeline exploded. Friends expressing shock, choosing sides, sharing their own suspicions. Someone from Hannah's company commented that there hadn't been a work retreat in February. Another mentioned seeing her at a restaurant with a man who wasn't Isaac. By Monday morning Elijah had texted 18 times. I didn't read them, just screenshot them for the lawyer. His sister called, then his mother, both leaving voicemails about working things out, and not throwing away a marriage over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. 6 months of calculated deception reduced to a misunderstanding. Sarah came over Monday evening with wine and packing boxes. We're erasing him, she announced. Every trace. We went through the apartment methodically. His clothes into boxes labeled with the dates of his fake meetings. Thompson account February 10th, golf weekend March 3rd. His toiletries, his books, his collection of vintage watches he'd spent our savings on. 4 years of marriage fit into 12 boxes. You want to keep anything? Sarah asked, holding up our wedding album. I took it, flipped through once. There we were, young and stupid and believing in forever, then handed it back. Ship it to his mother. She paid for the photographer. Tuesday brought lawyers, Wednesday brought apartment hunting, Thursday brought paperwork that made my marriage look like a business dissolution. Elijah had already moved to a studio in Queens, according to his attorney. Hannah's startup mysteriously lost 2 major investors who'd heard about the scandal through New York's impossibly small professional network. Friends crawled out of the woodwork with their suspicions. I always thought something was off, became the chorus. The way he looked at his phone. How he never included you in work events. That time I saw him at a restaurant when he said he was traveling. None of them had said anything before. Funny how clarity only comes after the explosion. 3 months passed in a blur of paperwork and empty evenings. Then Tuesday arrived with an innocuous manila envelope from Clearwater and Associates. The divorce papers finally ready for signatures. I sat at my kitchen table, my table now, not ours, and pulled out the Mount Blanc pen Elijah had given me for our 2nd anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me as I signed my married name away with his gift. Each signature felt like shedding skin. Esther Blackwood dissolving back into Esther Carver. The woman I'd been before I'd believed in forever with someone who treated marriage like a convenience. I texted Isaac, papers signed. Meet for coffee. Pearl Street Starbucks in an hour. We need to celebrate. He was already there when I arrived, 2 lattes waiting. He looked different, lighter somehow, like gravity had loosened its grip. His wedding ring was gone, leaving a pale indent on his finger that would fade with time. To freedom, he said, raising his paper cup. To surviving, I countered. We clinked cups and laughed at the absurdity of toasting with coffee shop lattes to the end of our marriages. Did you hear about Elijah? Isaac asked, scrolling through his phone. LinkedIn says he's seeking new opportunities. Translation: fired. The partners at Elijah's firm had apparently taken a dim view of the scandal. Something about reputation and professional conduct. He'd updated his profile to consultant, which everyone knew meant unemployed with ego protection. Hannah's not doing much better, Isaac continued. Lost 3 major clients last month. Turns out nobody wants their brand managed by someone who became infamous for destroying marriages at a rehearsal dinner. I should have felt vindicated, but mostly I felt nothing. Their downfall was just consequence meeting action as natural as gravity. Are you dating? Isaac asked suddenly. Random question much? I met someone. Catherine. She's a pediatrician at Mount Sinai. He smiled, really smiled for the first time since I'd known him. She actually works her night shifts. No mysterious conferences. No Pilates instructor contacts. That's wonderful, Isaac. Your turn. Anyone? I thought about David, the chef I'd met at the farmer's market 3 weeks ago. He'd asked for my number while holding heirloom tomatoes, his hands stained purple from handling beets. On our first date he couldn't hide where he'd been. His fingers smelled like rosemary from prep work. Maybe, I admitted. A chef. Early days. A chef's perfect. Built-in lie detector. Can't claim he was at work if he doesn't smell like garlic. We met monthly after that, same coffee shop, same corner table. Not because we were clinging to shared trauma, but because we'd become actual friends. Who else could understand the specific betrayal of discovering your spouse's affair through Instagram stories and credit card receipts? Catherine joined us once, curious about the woman who'd helped Isaac through his divorce. She was lovely, warm, direct, with tired eyes that came from actual night shifts, not fabricated ones. She thanked me for being there when Isaac needed someone who understood. Most people say, just move on, like it's that simple, she said. They don't get that betrayal rewires your brain. You saved him from going through that alone. David met Isaac the following month. They bonded over their mutual confusion about how anyone could throw away a marriage for an affair. David, whose restaurant closed at 11 every night without fail, couldn't fathom the elaborate lies our exes had maintained. I barely have energy to shower after service, he said, flour under his fingernails from morning bread. Managing a double life sounds exhausting. 6 months later, Adam and Claire's first anniversary arrived with a small party at my parents' house. The same dining room where Elijah had first announced Hannah's invitation, now filled with genuine laughter instead of lies. David brought dessert, individual chocolate soufflés he'd made that morning, each one perfect. He charmed my mother with stories about his grandmother's recipes, helped my father with the grill, and didn't check his phone once during dinner. The absence of deception was intoxicating. When Adam clinked his glass for speeches, he called me up first. My sister taught us something important at our rehearsal dinner, he said, grinning. She showed us that truth, even when it detonates like a bomb at a formal dinner, is better than living a lie. So here's my anniversary toast. May we all have the courage to trust with verification, love with respect, and if necessary, blow up a rehearsal dinner to save ourselves from beautiful deceptions. The room erupted in laughter and applause. Across the room I caught Isaac's eye. He was there with Catherine, both of them glowing with the simple happiness of honest love. We raised our glasses to each other, survivors acknowledging shared victory. During my speech I talked about trust being earned through consistent truth, not assumed through proximity. About how real love doesn't require secret meetings or saved contacts under fake names. How a marriage built on transparency might be less exciting than one built on deception, but it's also less likely to explode at a rehearsal dinner. Trust isn't blind faith, I concluded, looking at Adam and Claire. It's earned through 1,000 small truths. And if someone tells you to trust them while acting suspiciously, remember that actions speak louder than manipulative words. That night, back in my apartment, completely redecorated now with no trace of Elijah's presence, I sat with the journal Dr. Martinez had suggested. The therapist who'd helped me understand that exposing the affair publicly wasn't vindictive but self-preservation. I wrote about Elijah's words that had started everything. If you trust me, you'll get it. He'd been accidentally prophetic. I had trusted him and I did get it. I got that trust without verification leads to deception. That love without respect becomes manipulation. That staying in a beautiful lie hurts more than embracing an ugly truth. But mostly I got myself back. The woman who'd existed before I'd shrunk myself to fit into Elijah's deceptions. The one who could spot lies now from a distance, who valued truth over comfort, who'd learned that the best revenge wasn't destroying someone else but rebuilding yourself into someone who could never be fooled again. My phone buzzed. David texting from the restaurant. Closing soon. Saved you the last piece of chocolate cake. Also, I smell like fish stock, so you'll know exactly where I've been. I laughed, genuine and free. This was what honest love looked like. Unglamorous, verifiable, and somehow more romantic than any elaborate lie. I closed the journal and looked out at the city lights, the same view that had witnessed my marriage's destruction. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Next month would test new boundaries. Next year might bring entirely different struggles. But tonight I was free. Free from lies, free from manipulation, free from wondering where my husband really was. Free to trust again, but this time with my eyes wide open, knowing that real love never asks you to ignore obvious deception. The Mont Blanc pen sat on my coffee table, a reminder that sometimes the best gifts come from the worst people. And sometimes endings written with expensive pens lead to better beginnings written in simple truth. This story of betrayal and brilliant revenge left you speechless. Hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Isaac walked into that rehearsal dinner and Hannah's champagne glass shattered on the floor. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more jaw-dropping stories like this. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. I was given 5 minutes to clear my desk before my husband's father, the CEO, dismissed me in front of the entire leadership team. Instead of breaking, I smiled and said, "Thank you." One by one, 22 colleagues quietly stood and followed me out. Nia sneered until the legal director turned pale and whispered, "Get the lawyer, now." 4 minutes and 30 seconds left, Nicholas announced to the room, his Rolex glinting as he tapped its face. I continued packing my desk drawer, pulling out 6 years' worth of work. Project files, team photos, the backup drive containing every system architecture I'd built for Vertex Solutions. The 12 executives watched in silence as I placed each item deliberately into my cardboard box. Nia Blackwood leaned back in her chair, examining her manicured nails with practiced boredom. She thought she'd won. For minutes, Nicholas called out again, his voice sharp with authority. That's when Logan Mitchell stood up from his desk outside the conference room's glass walls, laptop bag already in hand. But I should explain how we got here. How 3 weeks of calculated betrayal led to this moment where my father-in-law counted down my professional execution like a microwave timer. Before we continue, I want to thank you for being here. If you believe that dedication and hard work should be valued over office politics, please consider subscribing. It helps more people discover these important stories. Now let's see what Nicholas had planned. It started at Sunday dinner at the Harrington estate, where we gathered like actors in a play nobody wanted to perform anymore. I'd arrived with Taylor and my homemade apple pie, the one with the lattice crust that took 2 hours to perfect. Eleanor always requested it but never mentioned who made it, as if pies materialized from thin air or perhaps the help. Another record quarter for Vertex Solutions, Nicholas had proclaimed, standing at the head of the mahogany dining table that could seat 20 but usually held just the 4 of us, drowning in its own excess. He raised his crystal tumbler, the whiskey inside catching the light from Eleanor's precious Viennese chandelier. We're dominating the market because I know how to recognize talent and put it where it belongs. His hand landed on Taylor's shoulder with the weight of expectation and inheritance. My husband glowed under the attention, though his contribution to the company consisted mainly of having the right last name and showing up to meetings he didn't understand. Nobody mentioned the Henderson account I'd saved 2 nights before, or the Morrison Industries contract I'd salvaged by working through 3 consecutive weekends, or the fact that while Nicholas was at his monthly country club whiskey tasting, detecting notes of oak and self-importance, I was rebuilding our entire server infrastructure after a critical failure. "You look tired, dear," Eleanor had murmured, her fingers, decorated with enough diamonds to fund my entire department's salary, briefly grazing my shoulder. "Perhaps you should consider better work-life balance. Appearance matters, especially for women in leadership." I'd swallowed my response along with my overcooked salmon. The truth was I looked tired because I'd been awake for 36 hours straight, but admitting that would only prove their unspoken point, that I couldn't handle the pressure, that I was, as Nia would later write, overwhelmed. The morning routine with Taylor had become a study in marital disconnect. Each day started the same. Him fumbling with the expensive espresso machine his parents gifted us, creating coffee that tasted like burnt disappointment while scrolling through sports news on his phone. Big week ahead? He'd asked that particular Tuesday, 2 weeks before everything imploded. I should hear about the promotion today. I watched his reflection tense in the microwave door. Right. The promotion. He took a sip of his failed latte. Dad mentioned Nia's been really impressive lately. She's been staying late, taking on extra projects. My fingers stilled on my laptop keyboard. Nia Blackwood, who arrived at 9:30 sharp and left at 5 o'clock on the dot. Nia, whom I'd been training for 3 months at Nicholas's specific request. She just needs mentoring, he'd said. Someone to show her how we do things here. So I'd opened my playbook, shared my strategies, explained our client relationships with the patience of a kindergarten teacher. She'd taken notes in her designer portfolio, asking questions that felt increasingly invasive. How do you handle system failures? What's your backup protocol? Who has administrative access? I thought she was eager. Turned out she was building a case. The server migration crisis should have been my moment of vindication. 7 days before Nicholas would slam his palm on that conference table, our entire data infrastructure needed emergency migration. 40 terabytes, 8-hour window, zero margin for error. Everything went wrong at once. Corrupted files, failed backups, a power surge that shouldn't have been possible. By 10 p.m. I'd activated my emergency protocol, calling in my entire team. Logan arrived first, still wearing the program from his daughter Emma's dance recital pinned to his shirt. She understood, he'd said quietly, though I caught him checking videos his wife sent from the auditorium. Priya came next, apology heavy in her voice as she called her husband. I know it's our anniversary dinner. I'll make it up to you. She'd ended the call and dove into code like she was defusing a nuclear weapon. Marcus Thompson, Sarah Kim, the Morrison twins who communicated in what seemed like telepathic programming language, they all came without question. The conference room became our bunker, littered with laptops, energy drinks, and eventually Chinese takeout that went cold before we could eat it. We're like some weird, dysfunctional family, Marcus had joked at 2 a.m., attempting to eat lo mein with one hand while typing with the other. Yeah, but at least we chose each other, Sarah had replied, and something about those words felt prophetic now. We'd saved everything. Every file, every client, every contract. Nicholas would never know we'd been 3 keystrokes from losing millions in data and trust. That's what I did. I solved catastrophes so quietly that nobody knew they'd happened. Then came the email. The misdirected message that revealed everything. I'd been reviewing the Henderson account files at 11:47 p.m., preparing my promotion presentation when it appeared. From Nia Blackwood. To me. Except it wasn't meant for me. Nicholas, as discussed, I've successfully salvaged the Henderson situation. The client was thoroughly impressed with my crisis management. I believe it's time to discuss restructuring. She seems overwhelmed, arrives looking exhausted most mornings. Perhaps fresh leadership would benefit the department. My laptop screen blurred as I read it twice, then 3 times. The Henderson situation. The one I'd personally managed while Nia was posting Instagram stories from a wine tasting. The rescue I'd orchestrated while she slept. I forwarded it to my personal email without thinking, some primitive instinct for self-preservation kicking in. Then I sat in my home office, still wearing the coffee-stained blouse I'd put on 18 hours earlier, understanding finally that dedication looked like weakness to those who'd never truly worked. 3 minutes, Nicholas announced now, his voice cutting through my memory. The executives remained frozen, but through the glass I saw Priya standing up, then Marcus, then Sarah. One by one my team, my chosen family, began to rise. 2 minutes, Nicholas called out, but his voice seemed to come from underwater. Through the conference room's glass walls, I could see the entire 15th floor frozen in a tableau of disbelief. Sarah Kim had her phone halfway to her ear. The Morrison twins stood at their adjoining desks, identical expressions of shock on their faces. I reached for the framed photo from our last team celebration. The one where we'd worked 72 hours straight to launch the Patterson project. My fingers brushed against something else. A USB drive, taped underneath my desk drawer. The one where I'd backed up every email, every document, every piece of evidence that might matter someday. Apparently someday was today. The morning had started wrong from the moment I'd badged into the building at 6:45 a.m. The security guard, usually chatty, had avoided my eyes. The elevator seemed too quiet. The 15th floor felt like it was holding its breath. When I'd reached the conference room to set up my presentation, the one about our department's 340% efficiency increase, Nia was already there. In my seat. The one I'd claimed 3 years ago because it faced away from the glaring morning sun. Her laptop was open to spreadsheets I recognized immediately. My department's confidential budget projections, the ones on a secured server she shouldn't have been able to access. "Oh, good morning," she'd said, that saccharine sweetness coating her words like artificial sweetener. "Nicholas asked me to review these before the meeting. You don't mind, do you?" The question wasn't really a question. We both knew it. I'd stood there, laptop bag heavy on my shoulder, watching her scroll through salary allocations, project budgets, vendor contracts. 6 years of carefully built financial architecture. "How did you get access to those files?" She'd looked up then, and for just a second the mask slipped. Pure satisfaction flickered across her features before the innocent expression returned. "Nicholas gave me temporary admin privileges. To help with the transition." Transition. The word hung there between us like a diagnosis. The room had filled gradually but wrong. David Park from finance arrived first, clutching his tablet like a shield, not meeting my eyes when I said good morning. Then came Margaret Lawson, our legal director, who normally radiated composure but today kept checking her phone, gripping her legal pad with white knuckles. Even the coffee was wrong. Usually, someone would have started the expensive machine by now, the one that ground beans fresh for each cup. Today there was only silence and the smell of fierce sweat barely masked by expensive cologne. I'd started my presentation anyway. Clicked through slides showing our achievements, our metrics, our wins. My voice stayed steady even as I felt the room's energy shifting, darkening, preparing for something I couldn't quite name. "As you can see, we've exceeded every target by." The door hadn't just opened. It had exploded inward, the handle cracking against the wall hard enough to leave a mark. Nicholas stood there, his face that particular shade of red that appeared when his blood pressure medication wasn't quite enough. His Italian suit, usually perfect, looked disheveled. His tie was crooked. He crossed the room in 3 strides, his palm hitting the table with enough force to make everyone's coffee jump. Margaret's actually spilled, brown liquid pooling across her legal pad, but she didn't move to clean it. "You have 5 minutes to clear your desk." The words didn't make sense at first. They existed in the air but my brain refused to process them. I stood there, presentation clicker still in my hand, slide 17 still glowing on the screen behind me. A graph showing the money I'd saved this company. That's when I understood the choreography of this morning. Why Nia had my files. Why executives avoided eye contact. Why Margaret looked ready to cry or run or both. This wasn't spontaneous. This was planned. Orchestrated. I had been marked for execution and everyone except me had known it was coming. Nia leaned back in my chair, and I saw it then. The slight upturn of her lips, the relaxation in her shoulders, the way she examined her manicure with the satisfaction of someone admiring their own handiwork. She'd won something and we both knew it. But here's what 20 years in tech had taught me. The moment when you think you've won is usually when you're most vulnerable. David Park's fingers were moving across his calculator with the frantic energy of someone watching money evaporate. I knew that motion. I'd seen it during budget crises, contract negotiations, anytime numbers were about to become very, very bad. Margaret had her phone out now, typing with shaking fingers, her face the gray-white of old paper. They understood something Nicholas and Nia didn't. Something about contracts and clauses and the very expensive difference between firing someone privately versus publicly humiliating them in front of witnesses. I set down the presentation clicker with deliberate calm. My grandmother's voice echoed in my head. She'd survived the Depression, raised 6 kids alone after my grandfather died, never let anyone see her buckle. "When they expect you to break," she told me once, peeling potatoes with hands that never trembled, "that's when you stand straightest." Thank you. The words came out clear, genuine even. Because in that moment I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. 6 years of pretending Taylor's family accepted me. 6 years of Eleanor's backhanded compliments about my appearance while I saved her husband's company. 6 years of being good enough to fix every crisis but never good enough to truly belong. Nicholas's jaw went slack. He'd expected tears, pleading, anger, anything but gratitude. Behind him I saw several executives exchange glances. Someone's pen rolled off the table and hit the floor with a sound like a gunshot in the silence. I began packing with the methodical precision I used for system architectures. Each item lifted, examined, placed in the cardboard box that had materialized from somewhere. The backup drive went in first. Then the project files. The team photo. My coffee mug with the chip on the handle. 1 minute, Nicholas announced, but his voice had lost its edge. Confusion was creeping in, the first crack in his certainty. Through the glass, motion caught my eye. Logan Mitchell was standing at his desk, laptop bag already over his shoulder. He wasn't packing. He was already packed. Ready. Then Priya stood. Then Marcus. One by one, like a slow wave building strength, my entire team rose from their desks. Nicholas turned to see what I was looking at, and his face went from red to white so fast I thought he might faint. Nia's expression shifted from triumph to confusion to something approaching panic. "Time's up," Nicholas said, but it came out as a question. I picked up my box, its weight familiar and strange at once. 6 years reduced to what I could carry in my arms. As I walked toward the door, 2 security guards appeared. Standard protocol for terminations, they mumbled apologetically. Tom and Derek. I'd brought them coffee during late-night lockdowns, knew their kids' names. "I'm sorry about this," Tom whispered. "Don't be," I told him. "You're just doing your job." We walked through the cubicle farm toward the elevator, and that's when the symphony began. The squeak of chairs pushing back from desks. The rustle of bags being gathered. The soft thuds of laptops closing. Logan fell into step beside me. Then Priya, her heels clicking a determined rhythm. Marcus, Sarah, the Morrison twins moving in perfect synchronization. By the time we reached the elevator, 22 people had joined our procession. Tom stopped walking. His hand dropped from my elbow. "In 15 years, he said, voice thick with something between awe and respect, "I've never seen anything like this." Neither had Nicholas Harrington, whose empire had just started its collapse, though he wouldn't understand that for another 48 hours. The elevator doors closed on 22 people and 1 security guard who looked like he'd just witnessed a miracle or a massacre. He wasn't sure which. Tom pressed the lobby button with a hand that shook slightly. Nobody spoke during the descent. The only sound was the mechanical hum and someone's phone buzzing insistently. Right. Then Logan's. Then Priya's. Like popcorn starting to pop, our phones erupted in a cascade of notifications. When the doors opened to the lobby, we walked out into blazing midday sun. The kind of light that makes everything look overexposed and surreal. Maria at reception stood up so fast her chair rolled backward into the wall. Gerald, the maintenance supervisor, stopped mopping and watched us file past. Someone started a slow clap from the loading dock. I couldn't see who, and then others joined in until the sound echoed off the parking garage walls. "This is insane," Priya whispered beside me. "This is justice," Logan corrected, shifting his laptop bag. We stood there in the parking lot, 23 people blinking in the harsh light, phones buzzing like angry wasps. The Morrison twins were already on their laptops, sitting on the concrete median, typing furiously. Sarah had her phone pressed to her ear, explaining to someone, probably her partner, why she was suddenly unemployed at 11:47 on a Tuesday morning. "I should go," I said to no one in particular. My car keys felt foreign in my hand. "We all should," Marcus replied, but nobody moved. We stood there like survivors of a shipwreck, not quite ready to leave the sight of the vessel going down. The drive home took 17 minutes. I know because I watched the clock the entire way, unable to focus on anything else. My phone, tossed in the passenger seat, continued its electronic seizure. 3 times I reached for it at red lights. 3 times I pulled my hand back. Taylor's car was in the driveway. Of course. He worked from home Tuesdays and Thursdays, a luxury Nicholas had granted his son but would never have considered for anyone else, especially not me despite my longer tenure and higher position. I sat in my car for a full minute, engine off, listening to the tick of cooling metal. The house we'd bought 3 years ago, with help from his parents for the down payment, naturally, looked the same as when I'd left this morning. Same cherry tree in the front yard. Same crack in the driveway we kept meaning to fix. Same life except everything had changed. Taylor met me at the door, his laptop still in one hand, confusion written across his face. Behind him I could see his home office setup, dual monitors glowing with spreadsheets he probably didn't understand. "Why are you home? Are you sick?" Then he noticed the box in my arms. His face went through a series of expressions like someone cycling through TV channels. Confusion, concern, realization, anger. "Dad called." His voice was flat. "He says you lost it in the meeting. Says you were unstable, started crying, had to be escorted out by security." I set the box on our entryway table, the one his mother had given us that I'd always thought was too ornate for the space. "Is that what he said?" "He said you've been struggling lately. That Nia had to cover for your mistakes. That he had no choice." I pulled out my phone, ignored the 100 other notifications and found the forwarded email. Nia's email. The one claiming credit for the Henderson account. The one calling me overwhelmed. The one that was clearly part of a longer conversation with Nicholas the first hadn't been privy to. Taylor read it once. Then again. His jaw muscle twitched. The tell he'd inherited from his father that appeared when reality didn't match the narrative he'd been fed. "This is..." He started then stopped. "When did she send this?" 3 weeks ago. Accidentally sent to me instead of your father. And you didn't tell me? Would you have believed me? Or would you have said Nia made an honest mistake, that your father would never plot against his own daughter-in-law? The silence stretched between us like a contested border. Taylor set down his laptop, ran both hands through his hair. Another inherited gesture. "I need to think," he said, grabbing his keys from the hook by the door. I just need to think." "Taylor." But he was already gone, the door closing with a decisive click that sounded like punctuation. I stood in our entryway, still in my work clothes, surrounded by the life we'd built on a foundation that was apparently sand. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something, instinct, exhaustion, morbid curiosity, made me swipe accept. "Please don't hang up." Margaret Lawson's voice, barely above a whisper. "I'm calling from the bathroom. The executive bathroom on 16, the one nobody uses." "Margaret." "Your contract. The clause about hostile termination. Nicholas never read it. Legal reviewed it 6 years ago when you were hired, but he just signed where I told him to sign." Her words tumbled out like water breaking through a dam. "The humiliation multiplier alone puts your severance at $800,000. But with documented harassment, the public nature of it, 22 witnesses, we're looking at millions." "Millions? Why are you telling me this?" Pause. The sound of running water. "Because in about an hour, Nicholas is going to realize what he's done. And when he does, he's going to blame me. Say I should have warned him. I've worked here 12 years. I've covered for his temper, his affairs, his questionable decisions. But this is going to end my career." "Margaret. Can we meet? Tomorrow. Somewhere nobody from Vertex would go. I have documentation. Things you should know. Things that might help us both." The call ended before I could respond. I stood there, phone in hand, when it immediately buzzed again. Dylan from my former team, had sent a screenshot. A Slack channel called The Exodus, with 247 members before IT shut it down. The messages were a flood of disbelief, support, and panic. Did this really happen? 22 people walked out? What do we do now? Is the Henderson project dead? Who's going to maintain the servers? My LinkedIn app showed 47 notifications. Emails poured in. 3 competitors had already reached out with variations of "heard the news" and "let's talk." But one email made me stop breathing. Catherine Walsh, the venture capitalist who'd turned down Nicholas's pitch 6 months ago, telling him his company lacked innovative leadership. Her message was 2 sentences. "Your team's loyalty is worth more than Vertex's entire market cap. Let's build something." I was reading it for the 3rd time when the doorbell rang. Eleanor Harrington stood on my porch at 9 p.m., makeup smudged, holding a manila folder like it might bite her. "May I come in?" Eleanor asked, and for the first time in 6 years she looked fragile. Not the polished society matron who commanded charity boards and country club committees. but a woman carrying weight she could no longer bear alone. I stepped aside. She entered my home, the home she'd helped fund but never truly welcomed me into, and stood awkwardly in the entryway, clutching that manila folder like a confession. "Taylor's not here," I said. "I know." I waited until I saw him leave. She followed me to the living room, sitting on the edge of our couch as if she might need to flee at any moment. "Nicholas fired his own brother this way 20 years ago. Edward. He was CFO, had been with the company since the beginning." She opened the folder, revealing yellowed board meeting minutes, old emails printed on paper that had softened with age. Edward questioned one of Nicholas's decisions publicly. Not even criticized, just questioned. Nicholas gave him 10 minutes to clear out. The family never recovered. Edward's wife left him. His kids won't speak to Nicholas. 20 years and the wound still bleeds at every holiday. "Why are you telling me this now?" Eleanor's laugh was bitter, nothing like her usual musical society trill. "Because I've watched my husband destroy people for decades, telling myself it was business, that successful men had to be ruthless. But watching him do it to you, someone who saved his company while he was playing golf, someone who made my son happy even if we never showed it, I can't pretend anymore." She pulled out another paper. "This is from 5 years ago. Michelle Reeves, VP of Marketing. Fired in a board meeting for insubordination. She'd suggested Nicholas's strategy was outdated." Another paper. 3 years ago, James Chin, head of innovation. Terminated publicly because he'd received a job offer from a competitor and Nicholas wanted to make an example. "They choose the easy path," Eleanor continued, and now she was looking directly at me. "Nicholas and Taylor both. They avoid conflict by creating bigger conflicts. They'd rather destroy relationships than admit fault. I've enabled it for 35 years and I'm sorry." Her hug was unexpected, fierce and brief. She left the folder on my coffee table and disappeared into the night, leaving me with evidence of a pattern I'd been too close to see. My phone rang at 2:07 a.m. I'd finally fallen asleep on the couch, still in my work clothes, the folder's contents spread across the coffee table like a crime scene. "Please tell me you're awake." Margaret Lawson's voice was pitched high with hysteria. "I am now. Nia destroyed everything. She tried to prove she could handle your systems, wanted to show Nicholas she didn't need the transition period. She was trying to access backup files but deleted the main customer database instead." I sat up, suddenly completely awake. She deleted the entire customer database? That's not the worst part. She tried to recover it herself. Didn't call IT, didn't follow protocol. She ran some recovery software she found online. Corrupted everything. The entire East Coast operation has been dark for 6 hours. They're estimating 14 hours minimum before even partial restoration. The silence stretched while I processed this. Our customer database wasn't just names and addresses. It was 17 years of relationship management, purchase histories, custom configurations, support tickets, the DNA of the company's client relationships. "How much?" I asked. "Conservative estimate? 50 million in immediate losses. That's not counting the clients we'll lose, the lawsuits, the reputation damage." Margaret's voice cracked. "She's been in the bathroom crying for 2 hours. Nicholas has been screaming at everyone. He threw a laptop. Actually threw it at the wall. Security is on standby." I felt something I hadn't expected. Nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication, just a cold, empty nothing. Nia had engineered my humiliation, and now she was drowning in her own incompetence. "Margaret, you need to document everything. Every email, every action, every word Nicholas says." "Already am. I'm creating my own insurance policy." She paused. "Your team could have prevented this. My team wouldn't have caused it in the first place." After Margaret hung up, I sat in the dark, watching the sunrise creep across my living room walls. Somewhere across town, Vertex Solutions was hemorrhaging money and reputation while Nia learned that taking credit and taking responsibility were vastly different things. Taylor came home at 7 a.m. looking like he'd slept in his car. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair stood at odd angles, and he reeked of whiskey and regret. "The database is gone," he said without preamble. I heard. "Dad's lost his mind. He's threatening to sue Nia, but legal says he can't because he gave her the access. He's calling emergency board meetings. Mom's had 2 panic attacks." He collapsed on the couch beside me, careful not to touch me. He wants me to convince you to sign an NDA and make this go away quietly. Make what go away? His public humiliation of me? The 22 people who walked out? Or the fact that his chosen replacement just cost the company $50 million? Taylor rubbed his face with both hands. All of it. He's offering the $800,000 Margaret mentioned. Full severance, extended benefits, glowing recommendation. All you have to do is sign saying you won't discuss what happened or compete for 2 years. No. The board is threatening his position. If you sue, if this gets worse, he could lose everything. I turned to look at my husband, really look at him. He was a stranger wearing Taylor's face, speaking Taylor's voice, but the man I'd married, who'd promised to stand by me to be my partner, was gone if he'd ever existed at all. He should have thought of that before he gave me 5 minutes to clear my desk. I need you to fix this. Those 5 words hung between us like a blade. Not, I'm sorry. Not, he was wrong. Not, I should have defended you. Just another demand to sacrifice my dignity for the Harrington family comfort. I need you to leave, I said, surprised by how steady my voice was. Taylor looked at me then, and for a moment I saw something, awareness maybe, that he'd chosen the wrong side. But Harringtons didn't admit mistakes. They just found someone else to blame. He left without another word, and I knew our marriage had ended in that moment, even if the paperwork would come later. By noon, my living room had transformed into a startup incubator. 22 people with laptops balanced on their knees, sitting on floors, perched on chair arms, crowded around my dining table. Logan's 12-year-old daughter Emma sat in the corner doing homework, occasionally looking up at the chaos with curious eyes. Phoenix Digital, Priya announced, holding up a napkin where she'd sketched a logo, a stylized bird rising from flames. We're not subtle, but neither were they. Marcus was on his laptop, fingers flying. Domains secured. Social media handles locked down. I'm also grabbing variations before Vertex thanks to CyberSquat. His husband, James, appeared with a tray of coffee mugs. I made a supply run. Nobody's building a company on empty stomachs. Pizza boxes accumulated like sedimentary layers of ambition. The Morrison twins had somehow created a project management system on my living room wall using sticky notes. Sarah was already reaching out to contacts, her phone voice professional despite sitting cross-legged on my floor. We need incorporation documents, someone said. On it, replied Logan, whose brother-in-law was apparently a corporate attorney. The energy was electric, desperate, hopeful. We weren't just colleagues anymore. We were refugees from a corporate disaster, building something new from the ashes of what Nicholas had destroyed. And in that crowded, chaotic living room, I felt more at home than I had in 6 years at Vertex. My phone buzzed at 4:47 p.m., 3 days after we'd transformed my living room into Phoenix Digital's first headquarters. Robert Hoffman's number appeared on the screen, Nicholas's lawyer, calling for the 3rd time today. Ms. West, Mr. Harrington has authorized me to increase the offer to $800,000. His voice carried the exhaustion of a man losing a war he'd thought would be easy. This is the baseline severance per your contract. The baseline assumes normal termination procedures, I replied, watching the Morrison twins carry computer equipment into what would become our actual office, a warehouse we'd found yesterday. Being given 5 minutes to clear my desk in front of 12 witnesses isn't normal. Margaret Lawson can verify that. The silence stretched. Ms. Lawson is no longer authorized to speak on behalf of Vertex Solutions. Of course she wasn't. Nicholas's first instinct was always to shoot the messenger, even when the message was a legal disaster of his own making. Then I suppose we'll let the courts decide what's appropriate. My lawyer will be in touch. I ended the call just as a white Tesla pulled into the warehouse parking lot. Catherine Walsh stepped out, her designer heels clicking against cracked asphalt, surveying our new space with the calculating eye of someone who'd turned dozens startups into billion-dollar companies. The warehouse was nothing special. 20,000 square feet of concrete impossibility, still smelling of industrial cleaner and the ghost of whatever had been manufactured here before. Fluorescent lights flickered intermittently. The loading dock door didn't close properly. There was a suspicious stain on the floor that looked like it had its own ecosystem. This is perfect, Catherine announced, and she wasn't being sarcastic. It's a disaster, Priya countered, gesturing at a ceiling tile that chose that moment to release a small shower of dust. No, it's hungry space. It wants to become something. Catherine walked the perimeter, her footsteps echoing. You know what Amazon's first office was? A garage. Google. A garage. Apple. Also a garage. You've upgraded, you've got walls and everything. She pulled out her phone, made a quick call. Send the contract to my email. Yes, the full amount. She looked at me. 3.5 million seed funding. I want 20% equity and a board seat. Logan nearly dropped his laptop. You haven't even seen our business plan. I've seen 22 people follow their leader out of a stable job into uncertainty. That's worth more than any PowerPoint. He paused at the door. Nicholas Harrington once told me emotional decisions have no place in business. He said it while rejecting my proposal to invest in Vertex because he didn't like my aggressive negotiating style. Funny how his emotional decision to publicly humiliate you just handed me the next unicorn. The next morning she returned with 2 other VCs. They toured our disaster of a warehouse, asked pointed questions about scalability and market penetration, then committed another $2 million on the spot. We hadn't even incorporated yet and we were valued at $17.5 million. My phone hadn't stopped ringing. But the call that mattered came from Richard Henderson himself, CEO of Henderson Corp. I heard about the situation at Vertex, he said without preamble. I also heard about the database disaster. Nia Blackwood tried to explain to me yesterday why our configurations were lost. She cried. Actually cried on a client call. Mr. Henderson. We've worked with your team for 3 years. You personally saved our product launch. Logan rebuilt our entire architecture over a weekend. Priya identified data patterns that increased our efficiency by 200%. He paused. The contracts follow the talent, not the building. We're moving our business to Phoenix Digital, effective immediately. By end of day, 3 more clients had called. Patterson Industries, Morrison Group, Chin Technologies. Together they represented $30 million in annual contracts. Each one announced their decision on LinkedIn, professional corporate speak that barely disguised their distaste for how Vertex had treated us. Stocks down another 5%, Sarah announced, refreshing her screen. That's 15% total since Tuesday. We were unpacking equipment, setting up desks. Actual desks now, bought secondhand from a startup that had failed. When Taylor appeared in the doorway. He looked smaller somehow, diminished, holding a bouquet of roses. Red roses. After 6 years of marriage he still didn't know I was allergic to roses, that I preferred wildflowers, that I'd told him this on our 3rd date. Can we talk? He shifted his weight, uncomfortable in his pressed khakis and polo shirt. His father's uniform, adopted without question. I stepped outside with him, leaving my team to continue building our future. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the parking lot's cracked asphalt. Dad's willing to apologize, he said, thrusting the roses at me like a peace offering or maybe a shield. He'll give you an executive position. Corner office. 20% raise. Full restoration of benefits. I didn't take the flowers. He thinks this is about office space? It's a good offer. More than fair considering. Considering what? That he humiliated me? That Nia destroyed the database trying to prove she could do my job? That 22 people walked out because they witnessed something unconscionable. Taylor set the roses on the ground between us and they looked sad there, dying on hot asphalt. He's my father. And I was your wife. Past tense, Taylor. You made that past tense the moment you asked me to swallow humiliation for your family's comfort. His face crumpled slightly, the first genuine emotion I'd seen from him in days. You're giving up on us? On our marriage? Your father didn't break us. You did. When you came home and asked me to fix his mistake instead of standing by me. When you chose the easy path of family loyalty over the hard path of doing what's right. He looked at me then, really looked, and for a moment I saw the man I'd fallen in love with. The one who'd existed before his father's influence calcified around him like armor. But that man had been buried so long resurrection wasn't possible anymore. I should go, he said quietly. Yes. He walked back to his car, the BMW his father had bought him, naturally, and drove away. The roses remained on the asphalt. I left them there. By evening they'd wilted in the heat, petals scattering in the wind like all of Nicholas's carefully laid plans. At midnight, my phone buzzed with an encrypted file from Margaret Lawson. The subject line read simply, "My severance package." The audio file was 43 minutes of a Vertex board meeting. The quality was crystal clear. Margaret had probably recorded it on her phone, placed strategically near the center of the table. $50 million. A voice I recognized as board member Jonathan Cross. He cost us $50 million because he couldn't control his temper? The database is completely corrupted. Another voice, probably CFO David Sterling. Nia Blackwood had no authorization to access those systems. Nicholas gave her full administrative access. This was definitely Margaret, her voice carefully neutral. Against my legal advisement. You promoted your girlfriend's roommate? This voice dripped with disgust. Christina's roommate from college? That's who you thought could replace your daughter-in-law who built half our infrastructure. Nicholas's voice when it came sounded hollow. Nia showed promise. She was eager, ambitious. She was unqualified. The slam of a hand on the table. This isn't some family drama, Harrington. You turned a personal vendetta into a $50 million disaster. Maybe more if the clients keep leaving. I listened to the board meeting recording one more time, their voices filling my warehouse office at 1 a.m. This isn't leadership, it's a temper tantrum that cost us $50 million. The disgust in their voices was palpable, even through Margaret's phone speaker. The next morning, everything accelerated. We're doing a press conference, Catherine Walsh announced, striding into our warehouse at 7 a.m. with a media consultant and enough coffee for everyone. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Every tech outlet is begging for a statement. We give them one. I don't want to seem vindictive, I said. You won't. You'll seem like exactly what you are. A leader who refused to accept humiliation as the price of employment. She pulled out her tablet. Meanwhile, Nicholas is holding his own conference at Vertex headquarters at the exact same time. My sources say he's planning to frame this as a strategic restructuring. The thought of Nicholas spinning this disaster into corporate doublespeak should have angered me. Yet I felt oddly calm. Let him try to polish this catastrophe. The truth had a way of showing through no matter how much corporate varnish you applied. We spent the next 24 hours preparing. Logan and Priya helped write my statement. Sarah coordinated logistics. The Morrison twins somehow got us a professional backdrop and lighting that made our warehouse look like a legitimate tech startup instead of abandoned industrial space. At 1:45 p.m. the next day I stood in front of the cameras, wearing the same navy blazer I'd worn that Tuesday, deliberately. My team flanked me, all 22 of them, dressed professionally but not uniformly. We looked like what we were. Individuals who'd chosen to stand together. Good afternoon, I began, my voice steadier than my pulse. 2 weeks ago, Nicholas Harrington gave me 5 minutes to clear my desk after 6 years of building Vertex Solutions' technical infrastructure. Those 5 minutes taught me something valuable. That competence threatens the incompetent, that loyalty means nothing to those who never earned it, and that sometimes the best thing that can happen is being forced to leave a place that never valued you. The cameras clicked like digital rain. Someone from TechCrunch was typing furiously. The Bloomberg reporter was live streaming. Phoenix Digital isn't just a company. It's proof that culture beats strategy, that teams built on respect outperform hierarchies built on fear. We've secured $5.5 million in funding. We've retained clients worth $30 million annually. We've done in 2 weeks what Vertex Solutions claimed would take years, because we have something they lost: trust. Meanwhile, across town, my phone was lighting up with texts from people watching Nicholas's simultaneous conference. Margaret sent a play-by-play. He's sweating through his makeup. Nia's behind him looking at her phone, literally job hunting during the press conference. He just said, strategic restructuring for enhanced agility, and a reporter laughed out loud. Someone shared a screenshot from the financial networks. They were showing both conferences on split screen. Me calm and surrounded by my team. Nicholas, red-faced and stammering, with Nia beside him scrolling through LinkedIn, apparently having given up any pretense of paying attention. The stock ticker ran beneath both feeds. Vertex Solutions, down another 8%. We were still celebrating that evening when my phone rang from a blocked number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me swipe accept. Please don't hang up. Nia's voice, but different. Gone was the sugar-sweet coating, the practiced professionalism. She sounded young, desperate, frightened. I know you hate me. I don't hate you, I said, surprising myself with the truth of it. I nothing you. A sharp intake of breath. Then, I've been terminated. Strategic differences, they called it, but everyone knows it means I destroyed the database. I'm being blacklisted. Nobody will even interview me. She was crying now, ugly sobs that reminded me she was only 26, ambitious and ruthless but still young enough to believe those were the only qualities that mattered. I have student loans, rent, my mom's medical bills. She has MS and I'm her only support and her voice cracked completely. I know I took credit for your work. I know what I did. But please, just one recommendation. Just something that says I'm not completely incompetent. I looked around our warehouse at my team still working despite the late hour, at the whiteboards covered with actual innovation instead of corporate buzzwords, at the space we'd built on merit instead of manipulation. Nia, I said, and she fell silent except for sniffles. You took credit for the Henderson account. You called me overwhelmed and suggested I needed to be replaced. You smiled while Nicholas gave me 5 minutes to pack 6 years of work. I know You took credit for others' work. Now you need to take credit for your own failure. That's the only recommendation I can give you. The call lasted exactly 5 minutes. I timed it. 3 days later, the news broke everywhere at once. Nicholas Harrington steps down as CEO of Vertex Solutions. The press release was a masterpiece of corporate euphemism. Pursuing new opportunities. Time for fresh leadership. Grateful for his years of service. But everyone knew the truth. The board had given him a choice. Resign with a fraction of his dignity intact or be fired for cause and lose everything. He'd chosen resignation, but it was like choosing which cliff to jump from. The ending was the same. Eleanor called me that evening, her voice hollow but somehow lighter. He's moving to the guest house. 35 years of marriage, and this is what finally broke us. Not his affairs with secretaries. Not his ego that needed its own zip code. But watching him destroy you. Someone who'd done nothing but make him successful, purely for sport. That's when I knew the man I married was gone, if he ever existed. Eleanor. Don't apologize. Don't comfort me. This is freedom, even if it comes 30 years too late. The warehouse felt different that night. The Morrison twins had strung up lights that made the concrete walls look almost warm. Sarah had brought in plants that somehow thrived despite the industrial setting. Marcus had set up a sound system that played quiet jazz while we worked. We did it, Priya said, appearing beside me with 2 glasses of champagne, not the cheap stuff anymore. Catherine had sent cases of the real thing. Did what? We won. David beat Goliath. The Empire struck back, but the rebels won anyway. Choose your metaphor. Gerald, the maintenance supervisor from Vertex who joined us the week before, raised his mop in the air like a torch. The same gesture from that Tuesday, but different now. Then it had been solidarity. Now it was victory. To second chances and first-class revenge, he called out, and everyone raised their glasses. But I wasn't thinking about revenge anymore. I was thinking about the contract we just landed, the one Vertex had been courting for 2 years. Global Tech, whose CEO had called personally to say, we saw the press conferences. We saw how Vertex treats the people who built their success. We choose to work with builders, not destroyers. Our valuation had hit $50 million. Not bad for a company that started in my living room with pizza boxes and panic. It's not revenge, I told Priya, watching my team, my family of choice, working late because they wanted to, not because someone was counting their hours. It's just success. The revenge is just a side effect. But somewhere across town, Nicholas Harrington sat alone in a guest house behind the mansion he could no longer afford. His empire reduced to rubble in less than a month, learning too late that when you give someone 5 minutes to pack their life, sometimes they take everything with them when they go. The champagne had gone flat by morning, but nobody cared. We were still riding the high of our $50 million valuation when Margaret Lawson walked through our warehouse door at 7:23 a.m., carrying a banker's box and wearing an expression I'd never seen on her face before, determination mixed with something darker. I need 5 minutes of your time, she said. And the irony of that specific number wasn't lost on anyone. She set the box on my desk. A real desk now, bought from a liquidation sale, scarred but solid. I've been Vertex's legal director for 12 years. I've watched Nicholas destroy careers, break employment laws, cover up harassment claims. I documented everything. She opened the box, revealing folders meticulously labeled by date and violation type. Every illegal termination. Every settlement we paid to keep people quiet. Every time he screamed at someone until they cried, then had me write up paperwork saying they resigned for personal reasons. Logan looked up from his laptop. Why keep all this? Insurance, Margaret said simply. I knew eventually he'd turn on me too. I was right. He's been telling the board I should have prevented your mass exodus, that I failed in my fiduciary duty. He pulled out a thick folder. This one's my favorite. 3 years of emails where he explicitly told me to ignore legal protocols. She turned to me then, her gray eyes sharp behind designer glasses. I want to be your chief legal officer. In exchange, I'll ensure Nicholas never works in tech again. My revenge might be colder than yours, but it's been fermenting for 12 years. I know where every body is buried because I helped dig the graves. Priya whistled low. That's dark. That's business, Margaret corrected. He taught me that. Now I'm going to teach him what happens when you create enemies who know your secrets. I looked at this woman who'd sat in that boardroom, watching my humiliation, and realized she hadn't been complicit. She'd been collecting evidence. Welcome to Phoenix Digital, I said. Margaret's first official act was scheduling the settlement negotiation. Neutral territory, she insisted. The Marriott downtown. Conference room 12. It costs $800 an hour, which Nicholas will be paying for. The meeting was set for Thursday at 10 a.m. I arrived early, finding the room exactly as expensive and soulless as expected. Leather chairs that tried too hard. A table polished to mirror brightness, windows overlooking a city Nicholas once thought he owned. He arrived 15 minutes late, a power play that might have worked when he had power to play with. But the man who walked in wasn't the Nicholas Harrington who'd slammed his palm on a boardroom table. This version looked deflated, his Armani suit hanging loose on a frame that had lost weight from stress. His lawyer, Robert Hoffman, looked equally exhausted. Let's make this quick, Robert said, pulling out documents. Mr. Harrington is prepared to offer $1.2 million, full benefits continuation for 24 months, and immediate vesting of all stock options. Margaret leaned forward. Plus a written statement acknowledging that the termination was handled inappropriately, and a non-disparagement clause that goes both ways. Nicholas's jaw clenched, that familiar tell, but he nodded. The man who never apologized, never admitted fault, was about to sign a document acknowledging his failure. The room was silent except for the scratch of pens on paper. Nicholas signed with a hand that trembled slightly, his signature smaller than the bold scrawl I remembered. When he passed the document to me, our eyes met. No words were exchanged, but entire conversations happened in that silence. His eyes said, "You destroyed me." Mine replied, "You destroyed yourself." His said, "I gave you everything." Mine answered, "You gave me 5 minutes." As I endorsed the check, $1.2 million, more money than my parents had seen in their lifetime, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not satisfaction or vindication. Just emptiness. The hollow feeling of winning a war that should never have been fought. Nicholas stood to leave, then paused at the door. For a moment I thought he might speak, might finally say something real. But Harrington men didn't apologize. They just retreated to lick their wounds in private. After he left, Margaret pulled out her phone and showed me something that made my breath catch. Security footage from Vertex, dated the day before Nicholas's resignation. "Tom from security sent this to me," she said. "He thought you should see it." The grainy footage showed Nicholas standing in what had been my office, now completely empty. The timestamp read 9:47 p.m. He was alone, speaking to the empty room, though the security camera didn't capture audio. "He stood there for 20 minutes, Margaret said. Tom could read his lips for part of it. He kept saying, "I gave her 5 minutes. She took everything." "He's wrong," I said quietly. "He took everything from himself. I just refused to go down with his ship." Margaret nodded. "Tom wanted you to know something else. He's the one who made sure the cameras captured everything that Tuesday. Every angle of the boardroom, the walkout, all of it. He said watching you maintain dignity while Nicholas lost his mind was the best thing he'd witnessed in 15 years of security work." My phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. "Can you meet?" Important. I found her at a coffee shop downtown, the kind of place that served $12 lattes to people who thought price equaled quality. She looked different. Younger somehow, though she'd aged years in the past month. I filed for divorce this morning, she said without preamble. Served him papers at the country club. During the monthly board meeting. Maximum witnesses, maximum humiliation. Eleanor. Don't pity me. This is 35 years overdue. She stirred her overpriced coffee with deliberate calm. I excused his cruelty as strength. His affairs as stress relief. His destruction of people's careers as business necessities. But watching him destroy you, someone who'd done nothing but succeed, purely because he could? That was when I understood I'd been enabling a monster. She pulled out her phone, showing me a photo of legal documents. I'm taking half of everything. The houses, the investments, his precious wine collection that he spent more time with than his family. My lawyer says the prenup won't hold. Too many documented infidelities. What about Taylor? Eleanor's face darkened. Taylor chose his side. He could have stood by you. Instead, he asked you to absorb humiliation to keep his father comfortable. He's exactly what I raised him to be. A coward who mistakes compliance for loyalty. She stood to leave, then paused. The Harrington dynasty took 3 generations to build. Nicholas destroyed it in 5 minutes. The very 5 minutes he gave you. There's poetry in that, don't you think? As she walked away, I realized the Harrington empire hadn't just crumbled. It had imploded entirely. Nicholas lost his company, his reputation, his marriage, his legacy. All because he couldn't resist humiliating someone who'd done nothing but make him successful. The settlement check cleared the next day. $1.2 million sitting in my account, feeling simultaneously like justice and blood money. I stared at the $1.2 million in my account on my banking app, the numbers still feeling surreal. 6 months ago this would have been a fantasy. Now it was just a line item in a much larger story. Seed money for something that had already grown beyond my wildest expectations. The warehouse barely resembled the disaster we'd moved into half a year ago. The flickering fluorescence had been replaced with warm LED panels that Logan insisted were better for productivity and mental health. The suspicious stain was gone, covered by industrial epoxy flooring that Priya picked because it matched our logo colors. We had real furniture now, standing desks, ergonomic chairs, even a kitchen that didn't smell like decades of neglect. Mom, look. Emma, Logan's daughter, called from what we designated as the homework corner. She held up her math test, 98%. Priya helped me with the formulas last week. This had become our rhythm. Emma did homework here after school while Logan worked. The Morrison twins taught her coding basics. Sarah helped with her science projects. We weren't just a company. We'd become the family some of us never had, the support system corporate culture promised but never delivered. $75 million valuation as of this morning, Marcus announced, updating our celebration board. Yes, we had one of those now, covered in wins both big and small. And Richardson Industries just signed. That's 40 employees and 12 major clients. 40 employees. People who'd chosen us not for the stability, we were still a startup after all, but for the culture. They'd seen our press conference, heard about the walkout, knew exactly what we stood for. Every resume came with a note about wanting to work somewhere that valued people over profits. Priya's parents had visited last week from Mumbai, performing a traditional blessing ceremony in our conference room. Her mother had touched my shoulder and said, "You gave my daughter purpose beyond a paycheck. That's worth more than any valuation." I was reviewing contracts when the door opened. Taylor stood there looking like a ghost of the man I'd married. He'd lost weight but not in a healthy way, more like grief had been eating him from the inside. In his hand were papers I recognized immediately. Divorce documents. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. We went to the break room, the nice one with actual chairs and a coffee machine that worked. He sat across from me, the papers between us like a border we were about to formally recognize. "I've been in therapy," he said without preamble. "Twice a week for 4 months. Learning about family dynamics, enmeshment, enabling. Terms I didn't even know existed when we got married." "That's good, Taylor. I should have stood up for you." The words rushed out like they'd been building pressure. "That Tuesday when Dad humiliated you, I should have been in that boardroom defending you. Oh, I should have walked out with you. Instead, I came home and asked you to fix his mess. I chose comfort over courage, familiarity over what was right. He pushed the papers toward me. I'm not asking for forgiveness or another chance. I know that ship has sailed. I wanted you to know that I understand now. What I lost. What I threw away because I couldn't stand up to my father. Are you still at Vertex? I asked. He laughed, but it was hollow. Nobody's at Vertex. It got absorbed by Stratton Corp last month. They kept the patents and fired everyone else. Dad's reputation made sure nobody would buy it intact. We signed the papers in relative silence, just the scratch of pens and the hum of the coffee machine. In this same room where my team had planned Phoenix Digital's future, I was signing away the past. Taylor stood to leave, then turned back. I hope you find someone who sees your worth immediately, he said. Not after it's too late. Not after they've already lost you. Someone who stands up for you on Tuesday, not apologizes for it 6 months later. After he left, I sat there for a moment, feeling the weight of ending a marriage that had probably been over long before Nicholas gave me those 5 minutes. But there was peace in it too. Clean endings made room for better beginnings. Margaret appeared in the doorway. You okay? Yeah. Just closing chapters. I stood, shaking off the melancholy. What's up? Thought you should see this. She showed me her phone. Nicholas's LinkedIn profile, updated that morning. Independent business consultant, working from an address I recognized as a strip mall on the outskirts of town. His latest post was about leadership through adversity and the importance of decisive action. 3 likes. I clicked on them. 2 were clearly bot accounts and 1 was from someone trying to sell him marketing services. That's sad, I said. That's consequences, Margaret corrected. He works alone from a rented office above a tax preparation service. No clients, no prospects, no future in tech. His reputation is so toxic that even desperate startups won't touch him. I thought about the Nicholas who'd stood at the head of his mahogany table, emperor of his domain, counting down my professional execution. Now he had infinite time and nothing to fill it with. No employees to terrorize, no board to impress, no family to come home to. Just an empty office and LinkedIn posts that nobody read. Do you feel bad for him? Margaret asked. No, I said honestly. I feel nothing. He's just a cautionary tale now. A footnote in Phoenix Digital's origin story. That afternoon we held our weekly all-hands meeting. Not in a sterile boardroom with people checking their phones, but in our open workspace with everyone genuinely engaged. The Morrison twins presented their new framework. Sarah outlined the client growth trajectory. Gerald, yes, he was our official chief morale officer now, announced Friday's team lunch. Looking at these 40 people who'd chosen to build something with us, I thought about those 5 minutes. How they'd seemed like an ending but were actually a beginning. Nicholas had given me 5 minutes to pack up my professional life. In return, I'd gained a real family, a company built on respect, and the knowledge that when you refuse to accept humiliation, you often find dignity waiting on the other side. Hey, Priya said, appearing beside me. Catherine Walsh just called. Bloomberg wants to do a feature on us. The company that rose from a 5-minute firing. I smiled. Tell them yes. But make sure they know, we're not the story of a firing. We're the story of what happens when good people refuse to let small people make them smaller. The warehouse hummed with productive energy. Somewhere across town, Nicholas sat in his strip mall office, probably refreshing his LinkedIn to see if anyone had liked his latest post about resilience. The difference between us wasn't that I'd won and he'd lost. It was that I'd learned 5 minutes could build an empire, while he was still trying to understand how 5 minutes had destroyed one. If this story of corporate karma had you rooting for justice, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when 22 employees silently stood up and followed her out, turning a humiliation into a revolution. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more incredible revenge stories like this. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload.